And Detroit changed pitchers like, well,
We did too.
after the first inning.
Person wants too fast.
The first pitcher only pitched 1 inning, the starter, and then they brought this other guy in, and he pitched like 3 or 4.
We kind of did the same thing though. Our starter pitched.
Am I supposed to be getting a
Pitches
text
changed
message?
every
Or am I
inning.
supposed to get?
We have more hits than them. They just got.
Do you runs early or late?
It was just one sack fly.
Oh, no.
They just got the
They
runners
got a run in the first inning.
Yeah.
Detroit got a run in the very
Oh,
first
well,
inning.
of course, this is signed into my personal account.
Yeah.
And then they got,
We would've just got a
So it's not
base hit
gonna show
here or
up?
sack fly here, or we should have won. We have more hits. We could've.
we had a guy on third, I was just thinking at home, God, could we just get a pass ball?
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. Or like Jimenez tried to bunt it. He bunts it like a pop fly,
Yeah.
foul ball. Like couldn't bunt it. Like couldn't do anything. Couldn't get a sack fly.
FPS, I
Couldn't.
can't do that. 8-digit backup code, don't have
Yeah.
that.
I was surprised
Okay.
that Voigt took out Brennan
Yes, in the second inning for Noel.
for Noel, because they switched pitchers, so he's doing their righty-lefty
Yeah.
thing. And I was like,
And the same
that was
thing. With, he
crazy.
put in Fry right away too, because he had somebody else in. Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, with Mosquito.
Kyle Marcondo or
Marzado.
yeah.
He had him in too, and right away he
took
changed
him
him
out.
back to Fry, and then Fry's in the rest of the game.
Yeah,
And we couldn't put Marzado or whatever back in.
I know.
Okay.
Fry's
I
Fry's
can't,
been swinging at like,
I can't get, I know,
Pitches
I
are
can't,
down here,
I have to
sorry.
cut off the conversation. I
Yeah.
can't get at my account because I wanted to use my own email, my school email account, but because of the universal login, I couldn't get to it. And then Robert's trying to figure out how to get me to my email, which I guess I won't have, but we'll get started. Good evening and welcome to the Cuyahoga Heights Board of Education meeting. It is October 9th at 6 p.m. and we are in the PDR room. The treasurer, please call the roll.
Mrs. Deco?
Here.
Mrs. Etter?
Here.
Ms. Kraus?
Here.
Mr. Dobbins?
Here.
Mr. Suchek?
Here, 5 present, none absent. I can't see the welcome statement. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. The board values and encourages public comment on education issues. Anyone having an interest in the actions of the board may participate during the public comments portion of the meeting. A copy of the agenda is on our district's website for your review. And at this point, we will have pledge of allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Dobbins,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Deca. Any discussion?
Yep, I just had one, I apologize, late addition for a conference. It's a federal programs conference later this month. A couple treasurers said it was pretty good, so I would throw that on there.
Okay. Anything else?
And just to clarify, Mr. Muccio, that's item 14B on the board's agenda? Thank you. Or on the board's matters. Thank you.
Okay, I see it. All right, anything else? Hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Dobbins?
Aye.
Mrs. Deco?
Aye.
Mrs. Etter?
Aye.
Ms. Kraus?
Aye.
Mr. Suchek?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. There's nobody here to make comments from the public, so we'll move into section 4 presentation. Turn it over to our superintendent.
All right, thank you. So, as required by law, within 30 days of the release of the state report card, you must receive, the Board of Education of each school district must receive an update on the district's status. I've provided you 2 documents. I've provided you with the state report card report, which has a lot more detail in it about how some of the components are specifically measured, as well as some other celebrations about the school district. So we try to create a quality document there that shows more than just, the bare minimum. Then you've got a copy of the presentation, which I'm going to be going through now. This is a night of celebration for Cuyahoga Heights every year. A lot of school districts dread this presentation, and I think the amazing thing is that we've not only done a tremendous job on this year's state report card, we still have room to grow and the mechanisms to do that. So It's something to be proud of, and it's an accomplishment by everybody, from the community to the board to the staff to the kids. So the purpose tonight is just to emphasize those great things that we should highlight about the state report card, and the 5 components that are measured right now. Next year they plan to introduce a 6th component. That may change, but that's set to roll out next year. We're going to break down slightly the components of the report card, draw some comparisons to surrounding school districts. I've been doing this for a couple years now, where I've shown you how school districts who are either similar size or are borders of ours, how they've done on a report card, demonstrate how to navigate the state report card as well, and then communicate some growth opportunities for you. So to find a school district's report card, you can either do a Google search, or obviously here in my slideshow, I've got a link to state report cards. So that's all you have to search is Ohio State Report Card, and it takes you to the portal, and then you simply type in Cuyahoga, and you want Heights, not Falls. A little bit of a distinction there. And you can get the school district as well as all of the buildings as well. I find it interesting that my name's on the state report card, although Mr. Evans was the superintendent. They waste no time making that transition. So I'll gladly accept this state report card, my name on it, because again, the amazing things that we did under Mr. Evans' leadership. You can also do some deep dive data by pulling up some spreadsheets, which is how I've gotten a lot of the information that I've gotten. There are advanced reports, and as well as some technical documents that tell you specifically how complicated each measurement actually is. So what's the report card measuring? It's measuring achievement, which is how many questions do you get right? Progress, which is did you reach your potential? Gap closing looks at all student subgroups to see how they are doing in graduation, how they're doing in mathematics, how they're doing in language arts. And then early literacy is looking at promotion to 4th grade. It's looking at proficiency in 3rd grade, and it's looking at whether students are moving from off track to on track with respect to their reading journeys for those students who are on reading improvement and monitoring plans. It's a fairly complicated metric. And then the graduation component is a 4-year and a 5-year graduation metric. Next year, we anticipate having the college, career, workforce, and military readiness component. It's still in development. Right now, it's report only. We're doing well, but we don't know what the number means. We got a 79% on it, but I don't know what 79% means because they haven't established what that metric is going to look like. So that's going to be happening over the next year. I'm fortunate to be on a state-level committee of superintendents who work directly with people at the Department of Education and Workforce and give feedback on the state report card. So we are going to probably break that component apart in the next couple weeks to really figure out what's going on there. So statewide results, you see it, there's 607 school districts. All right, 0 school districts receive 1 star, 68 school districts receive 5. We are one of those 68. All right, so that puts us in the top 4% in Ohio, actually, where we rank, because we rank 24th out of 607. That's up from 29 last year. As far as schools go, there were 3,342 schools that were measured, and it's difficult to determine which are high schools. Believe it or not, it's tough to determine which are high schools, which are middle schools, and which are elementary schools, because in elementary you could have K through 3 buildings, K through 2 buildings, K through 5 buildings. Middle school could be 5th grade through 8th grade. It could just be 7th and 8th. And then some high schools are just freshman-only high schools or junior, senior high schools. So it's really difficult to say, okay, well, it's out of how many high schools or how many elementary schools. So out of 3,342 schools in Ohio, 298 earned 5 stars. We have 3 of those. All right, so our middle school was in the top 5%. Our high school was in the top 1%, and elementary top 4% out of all schools in Ohio. Not necessarily elementary schools, but all schools in Ohio.
Can you tell me that again? The elementary school is the top 4%?
Top 4% of all schools. High school was top 1%. The middle school is top 5%, and your school district is top 4%. All right, so we did really well. this is the breakdown of the percentages and the numbers that you can see there. On the specific components, I'm not going to go into those, but it's just for your viewing pleasure when you have time. Talking about the overall rating, again, right now 5 components are feeding into the overall rating. Achievement and progress. All right, achievement, again, do kids get questions right on the tests? And progress, did they reach their potential on those tests? 28.6% for each of those. And then graduation rate, gap closing, and early literacy all have 14.2%, 14.3% weighting. Okay. They will award half stars. So we go everything from 1 star all the way up to 5 stars. And as I said, we are all 5 stars across the board. The school district, the high school, middle school, and the elementary school. How do we rank? So I did a comparison last year, and you can see the 22-23 results are on the far right. And then this year's results are on the left. So I'm just going to go ahead and read just this one so you know which schools I'm always comparing us to. So Kirtland finished 11th out of 607. Cuyahoga Heights, 24. Fairview, 46. Independence, 77. Nordonia, 145. Brooklyn City, 291. Parma, 299. Maple Heights, 410. Bedford, 477. Cleveland Municipal, 532, and Garfield Heights, 593. That's out of 607 school districts reporting. And you can see the comparison between how school districts did last year and how they did this year. So it's great to be able to move up. It's an incredible accomplishment by staff, students, families. To be able to, again, I use the analogy, if it's a football season, you just won all 10 games, again, with a completely different team. And it's tough to do that year after year after year because it's different kids taking different tests each year. All right, achievement. Again, we're looking at how many questions did a kid get right, and then based on how many questions they answer correctly, it gets fed into the statistical machine and spits out raw scores, which are converted to scale scores. A score of 700 is considered proficient. A score of 725 is considered accomplished. That's written in law. The advanced is all determined by the statistics, and then your basic and your limited are also determined by statistics. Only 2 of those are actually written in law. The proficient is 700, accomplished is 725. That's a 3 and a 4. And we do that on English tests in 3 through 8, as required by law. Students must take an English test every year, 3rd grade through 8th grade. Mathematics, 3rd grade through 8th grade, again, required by law to take a test every year, 3rd grade through 8th grade. 5th grade science and 8th grade science. And then at the high school, we have English 2, Algebra 1, Geometry, Biology, American History, American Government. Those are all the tests that we take. Last year we had, I can't remember the exact number, around 1,200 tests, I believe. Okay, this is what is required to get 5 stars. You need to have 90% of the max score. The max score is calculated by taking the top 2% of all school districts in Ohio on this particular metric, and that sets that as the top score. So you actually have some schools that finish above that. So if the performance index, which can be as high as 120, let's say that's set at 110, then you look at what your percentage of 110 your performance index is. Okay, so for us, our performance index was 102.7. That's slightly up from the year before. That top 2% average was 109.3. So when I divide 102.7 by 109.3, we get 94%. And as I said, you have to get 90% to hit that threshold. So we're pretty healthily above that 90% level. So that's why you get 5 stars. 5 stars at the high school, 5 stars at the middle school, 5 stars in elementary school, and 5 stars with respect to the district. All right, and this metric is the most easily understood, probably outside of graduation rate. And even graduation rate has a little nuance to it that's not always as easy to understand. So of all the school districts I mentioned before, we finished top of all of those in achievement, being 41st in the state of Ohio out of 607 school districts reporting. All right, Kirtland was second and Independence third at 45 and 55, ranking respectively. Okay, so how does that compare? I know last year we wanted to compare to median income, which is an interesting measure. You're not going to find this on the state report card. You have to do a little bit of digging. And then the economically disadvantaged number has actually, that formula has changed. Mr. Muccio, you might have seen that some in the funding formula about how economically disadvantaged is now classified. You really see a big jump for us going from around 24% to 35%. I think that's because of the reclassification of what the threshold is to be categorized in that particular category. But you can see going through Cuyahoga County, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of the top 10. So we're 8th in performance index, but our median income is where, if you had to guess?
Somewhere in the middle, but I don't know where.
Less than middle.
Oh, it's the bottom of those 10. 43,490.
Yeah.
The next closest to us is 56,218.
I'm sorry, not in the middle of these, in the middle of the county.
Yes, of Independence.
In
Yeah,
Brexit.
Independence is next, all right, and then you see Westlake, and then you see Brecksville, Broadview Heights, Rocky River, and so on. So we're by far, I mean, the next closest to us in that category it's approximately $13,000 above us. And then look at the economically disadvantaged. And this is the kind of thing that, I'm looking at, it warms your heart, because the fact that this child may not have a certain income level they are not at a disadvantage academically at our school. That this is what all this means, is that every child is embraced and has the opportunity to achieve, which is pretty amazing. So that's some interesting data. And then this is our running 5-year average minus the 2020-2021 year. I've intentionally pulled that out because those results weren't consistent across the state. We were remote, so our performance index was really low. Other school districts in like Southwest Ohio, they were in session the entire time. And so theirs were artificially high compared to everybody else. So we don't really look at that when we look at that 5-year average. So, we're averaging right under a 40 for our ranking in the state of Ohio out of 607 non-COVID years. All right, so progress, again, this is whether a child reaches their potential, and that is calculated with very complex statistics from SAS, which is a data analytics company in North Carolina, which runs data analytics for small countries, Disney World, and Ohio's value added, just to give you some context. I've been there. It's quite an impressive campus for sure. But essentially, once kids start taking tests, they build a testing profile. So a child who, let's say in 3rd grade, takes 2 tests and they score in the 50th percentile, and then they go to 4th grade and they take 2 tests and they're scoring in the 53rd percentile, and then they go to 5th grade and they take 3 tests and they're averaging in the 52nd percentile. We know that student is trending somewhere around the 51st percentile. That becomes that student's data profile with respect to state testing. And that child is compared to other students in the state of Ohio who have the same testing profile. So if I'm a 51 percentile, I am compared to other 51 percentile kids. We're not comparing LeBron James to Matt Young in basketball. That's not what this is. LeBron James is compared to Michael Jordan, and Matt Young is compared to somebody who just broke their leg and just got off the couch. All right, that's who I'm compared to. You're compared to somebody of similar ability as you statistically. So that's a really complicated. It's a really complicated metric, is how you're reaching your potential. The cool thing is we know what that child's potential is in October. We get those results in 2 weeks, and then we give that information to our staff to say, okay, here are the kids, here's their percentile, here's what they're projected to score on the next state test. What do we have to do to get them to that next level? And that's one of the really cool things we've been doing here for a long time, which is why we're able to perform at the top. There's also something called an effect size, and it says, well, okay, so you reached your potential or you didn't reach your potential. How significant was that compared to other school districts? So that gives you your effect size. So with respect to progress, if you meet a year's growth, so if you hit your potential, that gets you 3 stars. If you exceed your potential, that gets you to 4 stars. If you fall just below your potential, that takes you down to 2. Then they look at your effect size. If you overachieved, how significant was that? If you were significantly overachieving compared to other school districts, then that could get you to your 5th star. Likewise, that could take you from 2 to 1 if you're just not doing very well. It's a really complicated metric to look at. And they use 3 years worth of data. The most recent year counts 50%. The next 2 years count 25%. So again, there are some numbers that you have to hit in order to reach the various star values. This is kind of a color code that lets you see where we fall with evidence that students met student growth expectations. You see those highlighted. You see some significant evidence that they were above. You might see significant evidence that they exceeded at a large magnitude. You might see a couple where it says there's significant evidence that they've fallen short, and those are your growth opportunities. Well, let me go through the results first, and then we'll give you a couple things. So you've got the district at 5 stars. You've got your high school at 5 stars this year, and middle school dropped down to 4. We were 5 last year. And elementary school is 5 stars. Now there's, you look at the data and you don't know some of the historical or some of the contextual things that feed into that. For example, we had 2 teachers who covered 3 state tests last year that were out on maternity the whole second semester. So we had amazing subs come in that allowed us to achieve, but because our normal staff members know what it takes to go that extra mile and they weren't there, we fell a little bit short in some of those tested areas. So those are things that I would consider those anomalies. They're not the norm, and they typically get corrected pretty easily. So you're just looking at, well, why 4 stars and not 5? Well, there's a really good reason for that, and that just shows you how amazing the people are that we hire. So regardless, how did we do in progress? Well, of the school districts I mentioned, we were 41st. So we hit 41st in achievement, 41st in growth, or in reaching your potential, which is huge, to be able to do well at both. You not only can answer questions right, but you answer more questions right than kids in other districts that you're similar to. All right, so that's our ranking there. First was Cleveland. If you recall, Cleveland again, understand the context they're dealing with. They were 597 in how many questions can you get right, but yet they're 22nd in did you surpass your potential, which means they're doing great things and making some gains. It's just their starting point is just a little bit farther back. So to our friends to the north, we have to applaud them for the things that they're doing up there because it's working for them. And then right behind us was Parma at 47. The effect size, though, we were 6th in the state there. So of the growth we made, it was significant compared to other school districts who exceeded growth, who exceeded their potential. We did so by a more significant margin than they did in other school districts. So that puts us at 6th. Kirtland was 39th, and Fairview at 62nd. All right. So again, how does this look over time? And we're just looking at the gain index. Our average right now is 31 over the last 5 years. Kirtland is averaging 172. We see that they're doing significant things. You can tell when a curriculum director becomes the superintendent in a school district, and that's exactly what happened 2 years ago. Doing great things there, going from 290 in 17-18 to 66, and Independence is averaging 358. And they made improvements last year too. But that's, the comparison of 3 similar school districts. Again, gap closing is looking at our student subgroups. You have to have at least 15 students in a subgroup in order to register this. These are the different subgroups. You look at all students, and then you look at students of different ethnic backgrounds, and then you look at English learners, students who are economically disadvantaged, and then your students with disabilities. If you have 15 students in each of those indicators there, they will rate you out of a certain number of points. The max you can get is 75. We don't hit all of those. For example, English learners, we had 4 last year in the entire school district. That's well below 15. So we would not receive a number there. You have to get 60% in order to get 5 stars. We'll get to that. 60%, yeah, greater than equal to 60% of whatever your max value is. So if your max is 75, you have to get 60% of 75 points. If the points, like, I think our points are around 40-ish because of our populations, we have to get 60% of 40. So as you have less to work with, it can get tighter with those particular numbers. So this is a good metric to see in achievement. All the subgroups, did we hit the dot? And in all of those, we blew past them. This is looking at growth. Did we hit our potential? All right, and you can see there were a couple areas where we did not quite hit the potential. We did not pass the line that we needed. Over on the left, you're looking at English language arts growth, and over here you're looking at math growth. This is graduation with respect to the subgroups that we have enough population of. We've exceeded all of those. This is your chronic absenteeism number. We've dropped from 6.9 or to 6.9%. We were as high as 18% 2 years ago. We're getting back to where we were when I was here as principal, which was under 4%. So we're slowly trending back in that right direction. Mr. Kelber and his team, we hope to improve upon that this year with our attendance interventions. We got 5 stars. The district, the high school, the middle school, the elementary school. We ranked 28th in the state out of 607. That's up from 37th last year. Behind us was Kirtland at 57, and then Independence at 134 for the top 3 of the districts I'm showing you right there. Okay. That's our historical trend over the last 5 non-COVID tests. We're averaging 37th in the state. Kirtland 77, Independence 111. Graduation rate, all right. 2 graduation rates feed into this. Your 4-year counts 60%, your 5-year counts 40%. Some students don't graduate because their IEP and their proper placement allows them to continue on in school past the 4-year cohort. So they may count as a non-graduate federally. At the state level, they may or may not count as a graduate depending on how they've scored on their tests. So, for example, you have to score certain scores in math and certain scores in English. All right, those are called competency scores. Students with an IEP may be excused from the consequences of not graduating for those if their disability is in those areas. So those students would count as federal non-grads but count as state grads. Students who continue on past year 4, though, typically count as non-grads. You got to have a 96.5% total weighted graduation rate in order to get 5 stars. We're at 99.3. That's the highest we've had since I've been here, going back to 2015. So that 98.8 is likely to stay 98.8 in year 5, but we have 100%. We have 100% with last year's cohort. So those, you'll see those numbers flip because this is for the class of 23 and the class of 22. So the class of 24 is at 100%. The class of 23 is at 98.8. So you're going to, actually that's going to go up a little bit because the 98.8 goes into the 40% weighted category, not the 60%. So you're going to see that rise a little bit. 5 stars at the high school in the district. Obviously, 5th grade promotion and 8th grade promotion don't count in this metric. We were 25th in the state, up from 178 the year before. Huge improvement. Kirtland at 80, Nordonia at 107 ranking. So did extremely well there. And as I said, that percentage is going to go up next year. And to that metric, I got to give Dr. Brian Freed a lot of credit in that MTSS position. He has done tremendous work ever since I've known him in really connecting with kids, working with staff members, working with administration, working with outside resources and programming to help our kids be most successful, that gives them the best chance to get to what we call the starting line of their life, not the finish line. I have to give him a lot of credit for that in that MTSS role that he's been in. He's done tremendous work in getting our kids to the point that they need to get to graduate on time. Would you agree? Yeah, I know you do. Early literacy has 3 components. Were they proficient on the 3rd grade test, which means that they hit a 700 or the equivalent reading score? Did they get promoted to 4th grade? And did they make improvements in their K through 3 literacy? So that deals with RIMS, and whether you're on track and not on track based on the number of students who are on RIMS from the prior year moving into the next year. The difficult thing about this is the one metric, the improving K through 3 literacy, for this next report card is already done, because we have to benchmark our kids within the first 20 days of school. So we don't even get an opportunity to improve upon that, because it happens at the beginning of each school year that you measure how these kids did on the assessment that we've chosen as approved by the state of Ohio. We've got 3rd grade tests coming up in 2 weeks, so we're going to get our first glimpse of proficiency on 3rd grade and promotion to 4th grade. It's coming here pretty soon.
Which test is they take it twice, right? in 3rd grade?
So they take the state test. It's the state test in 3rd grade that determines if they promote to 4th grade. Determines if they're proficient. Okay, and then the promotion to 4th grade can be with the state test or an equivalent test. We'll get them promoted to 4th grade. It's both. So one of the things that we did last year is if a child scored a 5 in the fall on the state test in 3rd grade, we did not retest them in the spring because they had already received the highest that they could get from a raw score or a categorical score. They get 2 chances. Yep, they get 2 chances to hit proficiency on the 3rd grade test. All right, you have to get 88% to be 5 stars, 78% to be 4 stars, 68% is the threshold for 3 stars. We're at 76.6, and I believe that we're going to, my belief is we're going to trend upward on next year's report card. I think we're going to be up over 80% next year. You got to allow certain processes and instructional techniques and interventions to take hold. The science of reading, the teaching of phonics and phonemic awareness more explicitly, the different assessments that we use, all that is just going to go up as more kids get, a kindergartner who has that will now go to 1st grade with that. The 1st grader becomes a 2nd grader with that, whereas, you could have had, in the 1st year, you got all those potential gaps behind you. So we're making great progress, and I give my elementary group a lot of credit for that. So we're 3 stars in that one. And this is an area where I know we're going to improve. Like I believe we're going to be 4 stars at a minimum next year. I believe that. So, this is the one that, we look at, we're 24th in the state. Why is Kirtland ahead of us? Because we've beaten Kirtland on every other metric. But in early literacy, they're 9th in the state. We're 269th in the state on that one. Okay? But we are going to rise. All right? Independence was 19 and Fairview was 43. So look for good things to come in the early literacy component. This is an area where I know we're going to improve. The college career military and workforce readiness. I think I got the W and the M backwards. But this component's coming next year that is going to look at whether a child hits one of, I believe it's 12 different indicators for either career, college, military, or workforce readiness. So it's exactly what it says. So you just have to hit one of those 12 areas. So for example, if a child gets an industry credential at the Career Center, that counts. If a child is remediation free on the ACT or SAT, that would count. If a child gets an honors diploma, that would count. So there are different measures that we're looking at there, but that's all to come. Okay? So, overall, we've got a lot to be proud of, not just what we do on the state test, but also on any given thing that we do. I mean, we still have a 5-star preschool. We're still like one of the best communities for music education for, 19 years in a row. We had 33 AP scholars last year. We have 14 AP classes, 3 college credit plus 8 honors classes. Project Lead the Way programming that we do here, the one-on-one technology, the 40 co-curricular activities our students can participate in. It's just a well-rounded experience our students get. And this is one metric, the state measures us on, and we seem to be able to step up each and every year. So that's all I had. I actually did pretty good with that. I kept it to 30 minutes, just like I had hoped. So, do you have any questions?
I have one.
Mhm.
We have so much good news, and thank you to you, the staff and the entire team and the parents and the students for making this happen. But in a nutshell, how do you plan to communicate all this good news to our communities?
So-
So supportive.
Yeah, well, the first thing we did is we put it out in a newsletter. I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was, if you read my newsletter, which it's up in the air. But the newsletter, it was on the front. It was my front message. It said explicitly that we were 5-star buildings. It's also going out in the Heights Highlights, which is going to be coming out. The fall edition will be coming out in the next couple weeks. I believe that gets mailed out to all of the residents within the community. So that's going to be on there, as long as some of the other great things we're doing in the district. But it's explicitly mentioned as one of the I think it's on the front cover even of the newsletter. So it's getting out in that communication. And I'm more than willing to show up at a village council meeting to brag about the kids that live in their villages, because they're doing great work.
Well, it's obviously a collective effort, and the community supported us when we were and still are in need. And it'd be just nice to give them an update as to the outstanding things that your team has done.
Yeah, so we got at least 2 communications. One that already went out, and the next one is a much bigger one. It's going out. That's going to land in mailboxes. So people that like the hardcover are going to get that as well. Now, I think, again, I want to give our staff a lot of credit and praise, because they recognize that it is important that because the community supports us, that we continue to be at our best. And I think this shows that I show you the 5-year trends. We have a history of doing this, and I don't see any sign that we're going to be going backwards. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to get easier. As other school districts figure out all the tricks of the trade that we have, we're going to have to continue to evolve. We're going to have to continue to do things differently if necessary, and repeat the things that we know are working. And that's not easy to do. It takes a lot of time, talent, energy, blood, sweat, tears to get that done. So we've got time, but we're very aware of what we need to do here, and we want to say thank you back to the community. And this is one big way that we do that.
To dovetail off of what he was saying, I do appreciate where the information is going to get into the people's hands. But I still think, as I mentioned to you, that if we could sneak it into something that's a non-school publication, it would be great. So our communities do have our monthly newsletters, again, just 3 or 4 sentences saying that, we're a 5-star district out of.
I need to double check that, because I thought somebody told me they saw something in whatever Cuyahoga Heights put out. I thought maybe.
It was actually broader. It was like it was Garfield Heights, Cuyahoga Heights, it's like something with a strong community, or some type of community newsletter that goes out. That somebody had shared the schools that were 5 stars.
Yeah, and of the districts that were featured in that flyer, we were at the top. We were the only 5-star one out of all of them. So I don't know what that was, but I know what you're talking about is something more specific to the
Yeah.
villages. But
I would just love to see it in the newsletters, because it's something that is, it's something that we all get, all the residents get it. Some people read it cover to cover, some people just glance at it, throw it away, I get it. But it's a non-school publication. To get something about our schools in those publications would be really good.
I will
And I think it's a
contact Margaret tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's it's a validation too, to our communities who supported us last year with the levy, or this year with the levy. And just saying back to them, thank you for your support, and this is what we did. And, again, it's great news. We should be our own #1 cheerleaders out there, to get this information out there, because, like you said, there's hundreds of school districts that aren't saying that, and don't wanna, are sad, or reluctantly are giving this report about their state report card rankings.
That was a very
Message is
fair-
received. I'll make sure I contact our news folks tomorrow to see if they can work on that for us.
Yeah, Brooklyn Heights no longer has a monthly communication.
They don't do anything?
There's a seniors newsletter.
There's a senior newsletter goes out every month, and the mayor puts something, we just got it today, actually,
That's right, yes.
in the mail. He does it on occasion.
But this would be an item that, again, it's not asking for any type of support. It's just acknowledging the good results that people that live in the community, the kind of the results of their investment in our schools.
Right.
I think it's, if there's a way for it to happen, it'd be great.
Yep.
And I'm sure Cuyahoga Heights would give us plenty of room in their monthly newsletter.
Yep.
And again, it doesn't have to be pages long. It literally can be
I get
4
that.
sentences saying, you know, the rankings and how the schools, and maybe, you know, the achievement, you know, portion of this. But even just to say we are a 5-star school district, and each of our schools, elementary, middle school, and high school, is a 5-star. You know, just saying that, and saying the fact, hey, we were, was it 28th last year?
Yep, 28th last year.
And we're 24th this year. We were all ecstatic at being in that one, you know, top 1% last year. Now we can say it again, and we did even better than last year. So, it's-
Oh, thanks for the feedback. I will contact our news folks tomorrow to see if we can hit the villages that do still have a newsletter a little bit more intimately.
I don't have any, I'm a elected official here, but I have no connections to Brooklyn Heights aside from being a longtime resident. But if there's a way that I can assist in the effort, please let me know.
Thank you. All right, that's it for my presentation.
Very good, thank you for that
Thank
information.
thank you very much, Mr. Young. Are we ready to move on to sections 5? Treasurer's business, 5, 6, and so on.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for motions 5A, 6A through 6C for approval tonight.
Okay, I entertain a motion for those items. Moved by Mr. Dobbins,
Second?
second by Ms. Etter. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out a few things. 6A, purchase orders over 5,000, just 3. The first one is Ohio Schools Council. That is for our fiscal '25 legal hotline. That's with Enos Britton, so Ohio Schools Council uses Enos Britton, so we essentially get their rate about half off for 20 hours. TransFinder, that's for our annual Zonar package, $5,616.
Units specifically.
And Dean's Greenhouse for $8,000, that's the senior class flower sale. 6B, new vendors, we just have 2. The first is for AED medical machines, Coro Medical, and Prentic Ramage Company for special education speech devices for $1,000.
Do
So-
we have any idea how many of the AED devices we get for $5,000?
And there's some additional functionality for pediatric connections that go on to the ones that are in elementary school. So we're required to replace those every 10 years. So there were some purchases previously. I think we have a total of 7 in the district. So this is part of the just replacement process. Our school nurse, Cuyahoga, did a great job going through vendors. We got our first best estimate from the 3 estimates was $1,000 more than that. Before it totally got processed and got here, she's like, hey, I got another one that's $1,000 cheaper for the same product. So she did a lot of great work and gave us the best price for this BAP.
Thank you, that's good news.
6C is going to be our then and now, and that's just for the legal hotline that we're looking at earlier tonight. Those are the items I have.
Okay. Any questions for the treasurer? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye.
Mrs. Zetter.
Aye.
Ms. Prowse. Mr. Suchaki.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Treasurer discussion and comments, section 8.
tonight. The first one, it's that time of year, November 2024 five-year forecast. Comes up quick. So I have our tentative timeline to discuss and approve. So we would look to review the draft November 2024 five-year forecast at our November 6th work session, and then approve that at the following meeting, November 20th. That looks good. Awesome. 8B is our fiscal '24 audit is set to begin. It actually has. I've been working with our auditors this week. So that means our fiscal '24 audit is going on. Our fiscal '24 gap, so we take our cash basis records and convert them to generally accepted accounting principles gap. And that has been going on since about July with the Auditor of State's Office. So we work with them on two audits, our gap as well as our regular audit. We have our food service audit that's set to begin. That happens every 5 years, so we're due for that right now. And we had good news. We just had our final expenditure reports for fiscal '24, which are our federal grants. The final one was approved today, so all of ours have been approved. So always want to make sure our grants go smooth. So that's good news. So it's a lot of audits that's going on right now. 8C, Suburban Health Consortium. So the fiscal year had completed. They're on a 10/1 to 9/30 fiscal year. And just wanted to point out two things. The first is the consortium continues to remain out of compliance with Ohio Revised Code ORC 9.833, which is a best estimate reserve to pay unpaid claims and administration expenses. And that was last updated back in November of 2023 at 12.1 million. And our cash balance is 4.6, so we should be a lot higher. Now, they have to recalculate that $12.1 million figure because 3 schools had left the consortium. They're in process of doing that with the actuaries. And I think the initial estimate that we've been hearing is around 7 million maybe. So we'll have to see, but in any event, we remain under where we should be as a consortium, and every 2 months we point that out to everybody in the room as we sit there. And then just to talk about where the consortium ended up for their fiscal year. So the beginning balance for Suburban Health Consortium, there's about 17 schools that are in there. Actually, this might be good too. Let me open the second PDF that we have. I'll just, it's actually the first one. So the schools that are in Suburban Health Consortium, this will be good. So Avon Lake, Bay Village, Brecksville, Brooklyn, Brunswick, us, Cuyahoga Heights, Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, Garfield Heights, Independence, Lakewood. Now keep in mind Lakewood withdrew, so they were in for half a year. Medina County Career Center, North Ridgeville, North Royalton also was in for half a year and then withdrew. Oberlin, Orange, Polaris, Rocky River, South Euclid. Now keep in mind South Euclid was in also for half a year and they withdrew. So those are 3. Warrensville Heights and Westlake. So those are the schools in Suburban Health Consortium. Now the consortium began with 3.3 million. The revenues totaled 105 million. Expenses totaled 114 million. So that means there's a deficit right there, 105 million of revenue, 114 million of expenses, so an $8.6 million deficit. So that takes our $13.3 million beginning balance to $4.6 million. So it's that ending balance that I'm always mindful of and continue to be with the officers of Suburban Health and the presidents from Rocky River, the fiscal agents from Orange, the treasurers there. So again, what I would like to see is just kind of what the consultants and best practices tell us, which would be between 2 to 3 months worth of expenditures for your ending balance. So, and then also for us to fulfill Ohio Revised Code and be higher than what that minimum balance is. Any questions? Going into into this year, I was talking with, Matt, I mean, this is, there's no more room. I mean, there was kind of there was a panic going into this past fiscal year with Medical Mutual, and everybody saw where we were at, and that's why that move to Anthem, happened very, very quickly. At first, they were like, maybe we'll switch, down the line at the end of the fiscal year. Then it got bumped up to 6 months, then it got bumped up to 3 months, then it was like, Matt, we're meeting next week, we gotta do this. So, that happened very, very quick. And, but again, $4.6 million with all those schools. There's just no more room for deficit spending. So that means, we're exploring everything. The two large contracts would be medical and prescription drug. Now, medical, we went from Medical Mutual to Anthem. And for prescription drugs, we're with Express Scripts. And, I hear, positive things, with them. So, we're hopeful that the recommendation from the consultants of around 12.5% as an increase, gets us there. I really want to see, like Matt was talking about with the report card, you want to see results. So I want to see results with Suburban Health Consortium. But it's a very important year. And, our friends all around us from Independence, we talked with them, and the consortium, Brooklyn, Mr. Claris, Dr. Claris, he's over there too. So a lot of people are keep watching out for that. So that's all I have for this time.
Okay, any other questions for the treasurer? Hearing none, let's move into the superintendent's business, starting with section 9.
All right, thank you. So for the consent agenda, I ask for items 9A and B, item 10A, and items 11A through F to be considered for approval.
Have a motion for those items, please. Moved by Mr. Dobbins. Second by, what's her name? Ms. Strauss?
What's your name?
Sorry.
I get called Mr. Evans all the time. People don't know my name either, so.
Mr. Young. would you
Okay,
like to take us
so
through
9A, this is to approve Mr. Doug Amari to assist me with test coordination. This is still one of the duties that I've taken with me as superintendent from my previous role. I'm the test coordinator for the district, which makes sense because I have to sign off and verify all the results of everything. So it was a natural task for me to continue. But Mr. Amari, who actually fills the shoes of one-time test assistant coordinator, so to speak, Mr. Stan Durbin. So it's great to have people that understand and take the process seriously and are so thorough. So that's for Mr. Amari to continue to do that at the daily subrate. Next is MOU with Chat regarding supplemental contracts. When we had negotiated with Chat, we approved both the athletic, or actually the intent was to approve both athletic and co-curriculars to both be set at the same step, but when the contract got ratified, it only included the athletics. So this is to ensure that the other part in writing, this allows Mr. Muccio to be able to then properly pay it, because if it's not written, then he can't pay it. This allows us to do that. So you could probably expect, hopefully not many more of these, but sometimes when you negotiate new agreements, things get omitted or left out. So this is just one small tweak to that. Next is to approve a mentor for Ms. Solomon that we approved at the last meeting as a substitute custodian. So this allows a seasoned veteran in Mr. Berger to be compensated to mentor her per the negotiated agreement. Next, we've got College Credit Plus Memorandum of Understanding. This allows us to have students access the College Credit Plus courses at Cuyahoga County Community College. It's not Cuyahoga County, it's just Cuyahoga, it's probably Cuyahoga Community College for this school year. Usually we do these in the spring. I don't know how this got missed, but they never sent it to us, so this allows us to continue to do business with them. Letter B is a change order for our PSI student school health services. In the summertime, we did 3 weeks of summer school, but we only contracted them for 2 weeks originally, but we had 3 weeks where we required, a third week that we required student health services. So this allows us to fulfill that third week obligation. Next, two items. We've got main event entertainment, and we have the Cleveland Music Group. Both of these are related to senior events in 2025. One is for, main event is for the senior class luncheon that we do as a group, and then the second is the music DJ for and photo booth for prom. It'll be here before we know it. Letter E, this is Teaching Strategies LLC. They have a program called Creative Curriculum for Preschool, 6th edition. This is on the state-approved and required list for literacy resources that must go into effect by the end of this school year. So this allows us to get started with this in our preschool program and 2 years worth of that. And then this is a motion to accept the recommendation of the GPD group and the lowest, I'm just going to read the whole thing, lowest responsible and responsive proposal in the amount of $34,500 to Fagali Brothers LLC to repair the structural rehabilitation of the natatorium services, specifically the hangars. GPD Group was hired on July 3rd of 2024 as the owner's representative to oversee and manage this project. We had gotten 2 quotes from that, and this is the lowest responsible bid to begin the work on that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent?
I just had one, going back to item, oh, Jesus. 10A,
Okay.
involving that mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Is that $150 once, or how many?
3
times?
sessions.
Oh, so
3 sessions.
$150 each session?
Nope, $150 a session.
Thank you.
$50 a day for 3 days worth. So that's a good question. Yeah, it's $150 total.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we have done, I believe the past 2 times that I've made recommendations for this. That's the amount that's set. 3 days at $50 a day, $150 total.
Anything else?
With Fagali Brothers, the timeline, are you going to discuss that in your comments more? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, move forward. Treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye.
Ms. Prowse.
Aye.
Mrs. Stecco.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Mr. Suchek.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Section 13, superintendent discussion and comment.
All right, before I jump into facilities, I just want to mention that tomorrow morning, we've got Goodies with Grands. All right, that should start, I believe it's between 7:45 and 8 o'clock. You're going to be here at 6:30 helping? Yeah, we'll be here at 6 o'clock opening the doors. So it's a great event. Really looking forward to inviting the grandparents who are so influential in our students' lives into our school for an hour of fun. It's a lot of fun. And then we have on Sunday, PTO is doing trunk or treat in the back parking lot of the elementary school. That'll be from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock for anybody who's listening and would be interested in bringing their kids. We've been advertising that on behalf of the PTO for a couple of weeks now. And what else do we have coming up on the horizon? I know we've got seniors serving seniors are going to be in 2 weeks. That's the same night as a board meeting that will be down at Klima. It's not going to be downstairs. It's going to be in Klima. It's more open. It's easier for our senior citizens to access the facility. I believe Mr. Mark Chase is going to be helping us prepare the food, but the concept is anybody in the senior class who is available, it'd be great if they could help us prepare the food, serve the food, and take care of our senior citizens. So we've called it Seniors Serving Seniors. It's a little community service project for them, but that's 2 weeks from tonight down at Klima Gardens. And
Can you remind us of the time, because we usually go too.
I believe it starts at,
Five?
I believe it's at 5 o'clock. Yeah, it's either 5 or 5:30. Is it at 5 o'clock on the announcement? Yep, yeah. Mrs. Deal sent an email inviting everybody, so.
Do we need to be there before 5 in order to help with some of that setup?
We've got it,
Starting-
I mean, hopefully we've got it covered. I think we had initially we had maybe a dozen to 20 seniors who were available to help. So that plus our administrative team, you know, hopefully you can just show up and and enjoy the atmosphere. Don't worry about serving. We'll take care. Hopefully,
Ooh, not even serving this time.
we'll take care of that. Yeah, that's the goal. So those are some big events that we have coming up. So so yeah, I wanted to talk about a couple structural things that we have going on, because we've got some pretty big projects, and I know we wanted to discuss the timelines of things. So let me just pull that document up. So what I had communicated last week was 3 different projects that we have going on. And the only project that was planned was the Hillside project going into this school year, or actually exiting last school year. The only thing that we knew we were going to have to tackle was the Hillside project, and then we had 2 other things emerge that were unanticipated. So with the Hillside project, we're on a good timeline right now. They plan to have information to us sometime in November, all right, or at least have that out to bid so that we can approve by looking like year end. We would be able to, you can see board approval is hanging out there one day sometime in early January, because we only have 1 board meeting in December, so they're trying to work off of our timeline too. That will not put us behind at all. And you know, now we got to go to the next page. You can see that project's set to start the 2nd week of June, hopefully completed by the end of July. Okay, with the final wrapping up of the whole project in early August, so that by the time we actually start school, this whole thing should be wrapped up. Again, this is with no setbacks. The fire alarm system, we've done the urgent necessity piece, but we were surprised at the timeline it takes, because there's a lot of assessment that has to be done, coming in and walking the facilities and looking at our infrastructure and how they're going to tie in some of the electrical and the other components that have to happen. So it's a little bit more drawn out of a timeline, where you see, you know, bidding happening here again in January to February of 2025, with construction to begin, 220 days worth of construction to begin. And this may take us, and we're hoping it doesn't take this long, but this is showing it going all the way through December of 25. It's a big project that's going to be taking place. Looks like primarily next calendar year, but it's already starting now.
And they can do that obviously well.
Well, that's one of the things that might change this timeline, because they were asking, can they do work during the school day, and would we permit that? We said whatever it takes to get this project up and going as soon as possible. So that was an estimated timeline, trying to work around our schedule. But if we can actually have people in the building, you know, while school's in session or right after hours, right?
School in session, we have to get a bunch of different verifications that you know, workers meet the standard to be in school. If we have kids here, we have to make sure that it's safe for students and staff. We have to make sure that we're not dealing with abatement issues. That just changes things up a little too. So there's a lot of little factors along the way that we determine the best route to go that we're kind of playing through with our timelines.
And then with respect to the hangars in an auditorium, all right, so we're board approving tonight, which puts us right here. The contract will be awarded soon after, like literally like starting on the 10th, which is tomorrow. And then you've got all the pre-construction, construction, and closeout timelines, which is putting us somewhere around December 19th for estimated. This is an estimated finish date. They did tell us that, you know, they were pretty honest that we should expect a potential change order, because one of the concerns that they have about the hangars is that the pans under the air handlers are also corroded, and those were custom made. And there's concern that if they replace the hangars, that could compromise the pans underneath, which would introduce a completely different element to this. So So I mean, this is estimated, and we're not gonna know until they start replacing hangars. And, you know, kind of the intent with respect to the hangars was we didn't want to compromise the building, so that we had everything intact, so that in the future, whatever potential long-term renovations were made, we had a sound facility, at least from that perspective. So that's the timeline with respect to the hangars, specifically. Further update on the natatorium, though, because it continues to be the gift that keeps on giving here. And I can kind of give you a little bit of, if you want, I don't want to be too long here, but if you want, I can give you a longer term perspective of what the plans were for the natatorium where we were a year ago, and kind of work my way forward. Would you like to hear it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I want to make sure that everybody understands exactly, you know, where I'm coming from with some of the things that I've done in the first 2 months on the job. You know, last year in November, we failed a levy. And when we failed that levy, we immediately lost a $3.5 million worth of collections in this calendar year, which spans 2 fiscal years. Fiscal 25, half of 24 and half of 25. And after that time, you know, we were a little concerned because we knew we had to try to pass in the upcoming elections. Fortunately and gratefully and thankfully, we did in March. But before that, we had a communications forum with our teaching staff. There's a board committee, and there's the teachers committee that comes together to form this communications forum. And the purpose of that is, what is the plan? How are we going to recoup $3.5 million? How are we going to respond if we don't pass levies in the future? So we met on December 18th, and there were 2 board members there, right? I think, Stephanie, you were there, and Maria, you were there. And I introduced, you know, I presented on behalf of the administrative side, I presented a 3-phase plan. And we knew that phase 1 had to happen because we'd already lost $3.5 million. That was kind of the stance that, you know, it was me, Mr. Burek, Mr. Evans, and 2 board members that I don't think you were there, Mr. Muccio. We presented to our teaching staff. And it was a draft plan, but there were 3 phases to it. And we had two intentionalities. Number 1 was to protect at all costs, so to speak, the integrity of what was going on in the classroom experience. Because that's what makes us special above everything, are the relationships and the connections that we have with the staff in the programs that we have. So it was going to be to look at the biggest picture we could to protect that while saving or generating an additional $3.5 million, because we knew we're not going to get that back. So we have to figure out mechanisms to do that. So, and phase 1, like here's what was presented in phase 1. And it was regardless if the levy had passed. Number 1, we had talked about not opening the natatorium, not spending any more money than we had to on that particular facility because it required more money than just simple budgetary things that we could pull from the general fund. We talked about delaying the hillside project. We talked about delaying the roof project. We talked about cutting the activity bus. We were going to cut the facilitation of the BEST committee. We talked about cutting by attrition. So as people retired, we weren't going to hire certain positions. And when we did hire, we were going to change our practices to try to offset those costs. We had talked about at that time either reducing administration or redistributing administration to save some money. We talked about reducing building hours, and we talked about reducing utilities. And those were all things that we said we needed to seriously consider. And we talked about other things too, like do we do pay to play? Do we charge student classroom fees? Do we cut all testing at the high school? And those things we said, no, that we feel those were going to affect the classroom experience. And so we walked out of there thinking that that was our plan. And that's what we were operating under until obviously certain things popped up, like the fire alarm. That was nowhere, it was on our radar, but it wasn't anticipated that we were going to have to start figuring out how to spend $1.something million without generating any money until next year, because we don't get anything until 2025. the hangers in the pool. That was something that popped up. We're like, okay, we have to fix those because we want to protect the integrity of that building because we want to consider a long-term future for that particular building. And so, when I had spoken back in August about, my recommendation was to not open an auditorium this year. That's where that came from, was because I presented that in December as part of our cost savings measures.
You said it was a safety concern.
It was a safety concern, but at that time, it was a financial concern.
You never said financial. This is the first time hearing all this. Very first time. I never heard this before.
And I apologize for that. I wasn't superintendent until August 1st.
I've heard that a lot. I've never heard this before.
Well, so anyways, and I
Sorry,
apologize.
sorry. For being blunt, but this is
You
the very
can
first
be
time.
blunt, yeah, and I accept responsibility of that because it's my job now. But this was part of the bigger plan that was communicated back in December. And so, regardless, I communicated back in August, and I took a step back because I wanted to know, am I seeing the biggest picture? Because at the time, I'm assistant superintendent, and I'm speaking on behalf of the administrative team. So I've taken a step back, and we did a rescanning of the voids, and we found that we have additional voids, and we know those voids are either soft soil, air pockets, or it's water. I sent that report to GPD, and they spent 2 weeks comparing the GPRS report to their 2022 study of the hillside, and they said there's a potential that that's water. And if that's water, then there's going to have to be dewatering that occurs because the water level is above the bottom of the pool based on their comparison of the two. And the only way we're going to know that is if we drill a hole into the pool, into the voids. And if you drill a hole into the pool and there's water underneath those, we then have to do dewatering. None of the people that do the void filling does dewatering. So that would have to be another project that we would have to start outsourcing. And I just get concerned because where does it stop with an auditorium in the short term? And then again, that's just me. So yeah, safety was an important part of that. It was an important part of it, and I've worked to make sure that the safety things are being addressed. And we found out that the hillside is not connected to the pool. The two are independent, so we could move forward. The voids, we looked at that. The voids have expanded. GPD says you need to fix the voids. That's what they're recommending to us. You need to fix the voids regardless if it's soft soil, whether it's air or whether it's water. But if it's water, you're going to have to do dewatering. And that's where we are. So that's where, we have worked to get an alternate location for our swim team to begin practicing. And that's Independence. We've got 3 lanes available. It's not convenient right after school. We only have 2 lanes after school, but at 7:30 at night, we get 3 lanes, and it's at no cost except for the transportation costs. We're interviewing. We've done 1 interview with a coach. I can't tell you who that person is, but they had a good recommendation. So we got that process is going. So the swim team, with respect to our investment in the swim team outside of that facility, is intact to start the year. The question becomes, is it logical or rational to continue to move forward in the short term trying to repair the pool? And, I see the pros and cons of both. But none of that was part of the financial planning going into this school year. And, it's mine to own, and I accept responsibility for it. Because I understand the emotional side of things, and I understand the practical, pragmatic side of things. And, again, that's just where I see myself looking into the future. That December 19th project, in addition to being roughly $50,000, if we have additional hangar issues and if we have dewatering we have to do, it's going to be a lot more money than just what we put into it. And we just have to think about a bigger picture. So that's where I am right now. And I'm sure this information, again, I've gotten all that information last Friday. We have a standing meeting with GPD every Friday. And I've committed myself to educating myself as much as I can about all these projects. So, that's just kind of where I am. And I certainly apologize and accept responsibility if I catch people off guard, or if I didn't get all this information to you in a proper manner.
Okay, so are we moving forward with the plan for independence? Are we ready to move forward on that? Or we
Well, you have to move forward with that. I mean, that's,
But are we ready? Have we
yeah,
to do
I have,
contracts? Do we have to do
there's no,
board
yeah,
approval to anything?
there's nothing you're going to have to board approve, but if you want to, I've got, Mr. Kelber is getting a document for me that kind of outlines that they are for sure committing to allowing us to do this.
Communicate to the swimmers, who last I heard from their prior coach, there was no swim team. I don't think they even know.
There,
Mr. Culver's put up a sign-up sheet, he's had communications with the student body, multiple occasions, there's
during lunchtime, right? He's had multiple signups.
for the swim team.
I mean, well, I'll get communication. I'll make sure he's communicating out. It has never, ever, my entire time here, there's ever been talk about not having a swim team here. That's never, there's no talk about it moving forward. The talk since I came back in 2020, there has been concerns about the swimming pool, and that has been consistent every year since I've been back in 2020. But, you know, again, there is 100% commitment to having a swim team now and as many years as we can. And I really hope that we're able to find a solution to that swimming pool for long term, because I think there's things we can do to enhance that as an asset for the community. I've already spoken to two mayors about our interest in getting their feedback on that. And it's a priority within the BEST committee, and we talk about it financially all the time. We talk about our entire infrastructure here. So, but Joe, we're talking about the fire alarm. We were talking to our fire department about it, and they said, okay, so are you also replacing the elementary school? I'm like, no, we don't have $1 million to replace the elementary school's fire alarm. Well, they're the same age, so you need to prepare for that. We know we have to prepare for it, and we are. But, you know, the hillside, for example, we're going to have to use our billboard money. Well, using that billboard money will take us just at the threshold to replace the football field, which was the original intent of that. So now we're going to have to take a couple years of collection to get us back to where we need to be, so that count is solvent for the purpose. But if the hillside slides, you're not playing football. So we can do that, but see, we're not generating any money from the levy until starting next year, and that's good news, because then we can say, okay, with $440,000, what can we do to get the things that are necessary up and running, or do we have to stall and save because we know that the delaying of the roof project is $800,000. Those are just examples, and when I'm trying to look 5 to 10 years down the road. I don't want to go back to the community for general fund money. I don't want to cut staff and programs. And I've really taken, like I said, back in August when I first made that recommendation based on this December conversation that was had, I took a step back. I took a step back to say, okay, what is the bigger picture? Or better yet, what is the more granular, specific picture? So that's where we are today.
Okay, this was super helpful, and I think I also am, some of what you just said reminded that, like, these are the things that are, like, imminent, like, right in front of our face. There are also many things that have to come next, and unfortunately, it's a matter of prioritizing, to your point, safety and security in the elementary building, or, like, the pool, right? Are gonna have to make some choices, and I don't think that anyone takes that lightly, but I do think that we have large facility issues to confront, and sometimes that may mean, like, the cool things or the special things, like, don't get done in favor of the things that we can't not have a security system, right? We have to have one, so it's unfortunate, but that's kind of the position that I think we're in, and I think, appreciate you sharing this, and I know you guys are always thinking about all of it. Would love to do everything, but I just, it's not the reality.
Yeah, and Mr. Muccio has been a large part of this, because he's talking about the money. He's looking at that long-term piece that he has more experience with. And we have met at least 100 hours on this. Not the natatorium, but the whole entire concept about facilities. We've talked a lot about it because we know how important it is. And I understand. You know, I've been part of a school district that failed levies and cut programs, and I was part of those programs that got cut. We're not there to cut programs, but we might have to make some small sacrifices in the short term to gain much more in the future. So I can empathize, and it's not something that I've never taken any decision I've ever made lightly, nor do I make any decision alone.
So, Mr. Young, I do want to acknowledge your and your team, Mr. Kelber and others, extraordinary efforts to try and find alternatives for our swim team this year. I really appreciate the work and the commitment that you and so many others have put into this. And then on the other side, I know your expertise is in education, not structural engineering, so I very much appreciate the work that you and others have done to try and educate us about a very complex issue that's not in your wheelhouse, no offense to you. So thank you for doing
You're
that.
welcome.
And I appreciate this kind of longer-term presentation of the timelines for some projects that, as Ms. Prowse said, are literally staring us in the face that we have to make decisions on now so that we can just get on and stay on a timeline that allows for these things to be resolved in a timely and hopefully efficient manner.
We did not talk about the results of that meeting back in December.
I don't
Because
recall.
we did not, and one of the reasons was we did not want this to come across as so many other districts do. They threaten their community with cuts,
Right.
and then what you're faced with it is if you don't pass, now they call your bluff. We didn't. That was very intentional. We respect our communities too much to do something, and as well as we don't want to put our staff and our students in the middle of that. And so that's why that was not necessarily publicly communicated. It was in a private communications forum that's part of the negotiated agreement that is to discuss very specific things that sometimes are highly confidential. But we did not want to threaten our community with short or long-term cuts and then turn around and have to fully implement multiple phases of that.
I understand that and I appreciate that concern for the communities. It's also my understanding that the negotiation, if you will, between our district relative to the swim team conversation and the other city, Independence in particular, may have been beyond our walls. And so to the extent that we had other collaboration, I sure appreciate those efforts and recognize those.
Yep.
So
Thank you. Yep.
And to all those that have had a hand in trying to ensure that the kids have a great experience, including swim team, and make it as
Yeah, that may have happened because of a conversation we had with Mayor Bocci back in August. When we met with him, we said, can you help us with something? This is very important to us, and if you can be of any help, we'd appreciate it. I haven't verified with him whether that's actually how that happened, but it appears to be a collaboration between potentially two mayors. So,
Which is very much appreciated. I know both mayors are strongly supportive of their school districts. And the more cooperation we can get at that level, I think the stronger both districts will be. So we appreciate your involvement in helping make that happen, Mr. Young. Any other discussion on superintendent's business? Okay. We'll move on to section 14, board business resolutions. We have two resolutions, attendance at the ESC School Board Leadership Program and attendance at the OAASB FEP Fall Leadership Conference. I think I got a couple of those letters wrong. For the, that one's for the superintendent and treasurer, I believe. Is that correct?
Just
or
Just Matt.
just the treasurer, sorry
Or Matt.
about that. So could I have a motion for those two items, please? Moved by Mr. Dobbins.
Second.
Was that Ms. Proust?
No.
Okay, yes. Any discussion? Hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye.
Ms. Proust?
Aye.
Mrs. Decker?
Aye.
Mrs. Etter?
Aye.
Mr. Souchaki?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Board comments, or, I'm sorry, yes, section 16, board comments. Any items to be brought before the board? I have a few from the Career Center, if you would like. I was hoping to get the presentation, but I didn't get to it, or I didn't get it, I should say. We have the facilities plan for 2024 to 2029. So it's a 5-year facilities plan for the Career Center. Just very briefly, this past fiscal year, spent $2.2 million in the construction trades area, the Valley Inn, culinary, and the PA system, plus 2 new roofs and HVAC units, and paving and recycling. That came to a total of $2.2 million. And I have pictures and all sorts of wonderful things if you'd like to see them. For 25, there's going to be a renovation of one of the cosmetology labs. That's $450 million. Going to do some relamping of the high bay areas. High bay areas are the ones where they need a lot of overhead clearance. And little by little, they're trying to replace the formerly efficient lighting fixtures with the newly much more efficient lighting fixtures. And they're going to be doing some painting projects. And then exterior, we have more roofs to replace and some HVAC units, and they continue removing glass block. Building is over 50 years old. Glass block does leak after that time. And it was decided to remove it and replace it with something that won't require regular maintenance. There's a new storage and dig building. That's going to be part of the new project that's coming for the Park and Recreation. Going to replace some HVAC units and some structural steel. $5.2 million in projects for fiscal year '25. And that building is just slightly over half the age of ours. It's just over 50 years. We're getting close to 100 now. And then this goes on for several years. In 2026, they've got to do the rest of the cosmetology. They've got to redo the HVAC lab, which is getting shifted around because of the other construction that's going on. More relamping and painting, more roofing, more glass block. It's another $3.6 million. And there's pictures of how bad those roofs look if anybody wants to see them. And then in fiscal year '27, they switch to more internal, get caught up on things like carpeting and painting. But there's more HVAC and some parking lot repairs, another $5 million. And then fiscal year '28, $3.6 million, including redoing the whole north parking lot, which really needs it, and doing the restrooms, which I personally appreciate because every time I need to use one of those restrooms in that building, I'm reminding of how good the building looks and how poor the restrooms are. And then after that, there's going to be some, they're talking about adding space for the emergency medical technician sports medicine program, which they currently do some of their sessions in the main hallway because they don't have enough space. This is all dependent on the concept of course, a lot of that money is coming from the state in the first place, and the second part of that is the concept that we will always maintain 1 year of expenses in the bank accounts. Right? So if at any point spending exceeds that money and would bring us below 1 year of expenses in hand, then we will change the 5-year plan in order to keep that objective in mind. So that's the direction we try to do that in.
Just clarification, what do you mean most of the money coming from the state?
I shouldn't say most. A lot of money is coming directly from the state for career centers, and we are one of the ones that is, and I don't remember what the number is. I have forgotten.
how do we get most of the money to come from the state, is my question.
Either become a career center or a private school. Sorry.
We're
Being a little
500.
facetious, anybody listening on
Well,
tape?
we're 599th out of 607
Yeah.
on the list to receive
I'm just posing a question.
funds.
I'd love to hear the answer.
It's not
It is
happening.
consistent with the state's change. You know, they even changed the name of the department. It's now Department of Education and Workforce. It's all consistent with the direction that the government of the state of Ohio has chosen to take us in from an educational viewpoint. No comment on agreement or disagreement. That is the direction it's going. That's where the money flows. We also have some enrollment statistics. We have first-year enrollment from Cuyahoga Heights. We have 34 students enrolled out of a total of 492 in the class to date. That's a relatively small number, but remember, our population is the smallest of the districts as well. So on a percentage, we have the highest percentage of students attending the Career Center come from here. And second-year students, it's 24 out of 402. Our enrollment percentage is 28.24. The next closest one would be Nordonia at 25.9. Brecksville Broadview Heights is also over 20. The lowest one would be Revere at just over 10%. So our students do take advantage of the Career Center, and I continue to get positive comments from staff members of the Career Center who say that our students are extremely courteous, well-behaved, and they really enjoy having them in their classes. And that's all I had. Anybody else? If you are interested in seeing this presentation, I can certainly get a copy too, if anybody wants to see that presentation, the flyer forecast. Okay, moving on to the next section then, possible future agenda items, anyone?
Did we already approve going to Capitol Conference?
Yes.
Okay, because that would be the last board meeting before Capitol Conference, right?
The next
We're all
one
good,
would be-
we're all approved.
Yep, and lucky or skill, we're staying at the.
Good job,
You worked
thank
your
you.
magic.
It's appreciated.
You're probably up in the wee hours of the morning, right?
They open a whole portal and you have to go through really quick. But I think like Matt said, sometimes some of these other schools are gonna catch on at some point. We're gonna have to evolve.
Have to come up with better ways to do this.
Yeah.
It's always a challenge, just like sports. We thought the Browns were gonna have a good season, right? Then all the other teams did a much better job. At least the ones we've encountered so far. Let's see, informational items. It should be noted the Board of Education members received their agenda several days prior to the meeting and have had time to study it and ask questions and so on. Upcoming regular meetings, October 23rd at 7, November 6th at 6, and November 20th at 7. Is there any other items to come before the board? Hearing none, I make a motion for adjournment. Can we have a second, please? Second by Mr. Dobbins. Treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Suchaki.
Aye.
Mr. Dobbins.
Aye.
Mrs. Decker.
Aye.
Mrs. Etter.
Aye.
Ms. Prowse.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0 at 7:32, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.